What's up, guys? So AMD just released 20.11.3 drivers for AMD GPUs, like pretty much all families are supported. And it looks like they mostly added some Vulkan support to do with variable rate shading and yeah, just improving the Vulkan API compatibility feature sets pretty much. So Vulkan ray tracing extensions, as you can see, support for Vulkan RT. Now the 5000 series that I'm running does not have any physical RT cores, but the 6000 series does, and they fixed issues with low performance in Watch Dogs Legion and Dirt 5 for RX 6000, and for 5000 it's in Godfall, and Godfall not being detected. So they fixed that, and corruption issues with RX 6800 in Crisis Remastered, and intermittent crashes. Doesn't say for which GPUs. Intermittent crashes in Total War Saga Troy and WoW Shadowlands, and also fixes for ray tracing and DirectX 12 API. So this one looks interesting too. So Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Premiere, if you use those, fixed issues there, and corruption with RX 6800 in Red Dead. Now there's still known issues, most of which are related to looks like ray tracing, pretty much stuff that's been in they still haven't fixed from previous drivers. Nothing that impacts me, but at least if it might impact you, it's worth having a look. Like if you use FreeSync, for example, brightness flickering in some games with FreeSync enabled. And then there's this one here, which is the bottom. Screen flickering might be observed when using MSI Afterburner. Now this is to do with your settings. It's not really a 100% issue. So it's something you can fix user side. If you run Afterburner like I do for an overlay, do not control your fan or your GPU profiles through Afterburner because it'll conflict with the Radeon settings. And likewise, if you run the overlay and then you have, for example, I'll show you here. If you have the in-game overlay enabled, which you also want to make sure you disable hotkeys because I disable mine to keep it fully disabled. If you're using two overlays at once, then they can also conflict and cause flickering. So that's actually why they've might be observed. They've put it in here because it doesn't happen for everyone. And clearly, if you've seen any of my previous videos over the past like 6 months, I don't have an issue with it. So just make sure you disable your overlay and do all your performance tuning through Radeon drivers to avoid conflicts with the fan profiles. Because literally, if you just turn fan control on through MSI Afterburner, you'll get flickering and all sorts of weird bugginess in the, like even the driver overlay, like this window will flicker even. So just, yeah, use one or the other. Don't use both. Simple as that. And yeah, other than that, I've done testing. I've already done the benchmarks. As you can see here, I've just pre-done them, and I've also put in brackets recording on versus off. The biggest difference is with Heaven on the minimums when I have recording off. The minimums are noticeably higher, like larger than margin of error. But if comparing recording off between another recording off test, it's within margin of error. So the only big difference is if you're recording, comparing recording on and off, that you'll see this like more than 5 FPS difference here. But it's not a big deal. Everything else is just, you know, within margin. It's all fine. If I go as far back as Metro Exodus 20.10.1, it was 2 FPS higher, but still margin of error. And I believe I didn't even have Brave, like my browser, open at this time. So that could have also been why it was slightly higher. But if you look at the minimum 99th percentile, which is severe FPS drop, it's all within 1 FPS. So it's not a big deal. But I'm just showing these numbers to show that the drivers themselves are running fine and there's no crashing, there's no issues recording as I'm recording this video. And I also wanted to share that these 20.11.3 drivers do not come up in update, or they didn't come up for me. So when I was on 20.11.2, when I clicked check for updates with optional checked, it was saying it was up to date. And I only discovered them because I had a glitch in Call of Duty campaign, which is a very specific, it's not really a driver breaking glitch. It's a glitch with certain character models showing green artifacts that has existed since version 19 and into version 20. So this is the bug here that I was trying to diagnose when I found these driver updates that were released just last night. So you can see the release date, November 30. and it's December 1 now. So I found these here, but they weren't showing up in my drivers when I checked. And the glitch involves green artifacting, green and red flickering on the face of the butcher in the embassy scene. And I actually went through a lot of trouble trying to diagnose this, thinking, is it a GPU issue? But it can't be, because it would affect everything. It was a GPU-wide issue. I checked the game files, restarted shaders, reset the shaders within the drivers, because there is an option to manually reset your driver cache. So I reset shader cache here, and then I also reinstalled the game cache. You know how the game does its own installation? So I did that every time I changed drivers. I changed drivers a few times trying to diagnose this. And 20.11.1 Butcher's face flickers. 20.9.2 Butcher's face does not flicker, but then the characters at the start of this mission, Garrick and Price, both of those, their faces started flickering green, and it was even worse because it was like it's a close up on the camera when you're playing that when it's showing that cutscene, and it was way worse on 20.9. So I went back to 20.4, and it was even bigger. Like it was, their faces were almost entirely green sparkles. It was ridiculous, and apparently a lot of people have had this issue. It seems to be more related to RX 5000 series and not all GPUs, but I have looked up graphical glitches for RTX, and it happens with NVIDIA too. It's just different types of glitches. Like their glitches are like, if you have reflections enabled, you'll get bright lights covering your entire screen. Like if you look a certain direction, a white light will just fill the screen, and it's a common issue too. So it's not really a AMD or NVIDIA specific, like they both, it's to do with Activision as well, like the developers of the game, the publishers, they have to patch this and work with both companies to fix all these bugs, and they just haven't got around to it yet. So basically it was a trade-off. I went as low as 20.4.2, and then I had the Garrick and Price character model heads glitching, and I wasn't willing to go back to version 19, because with version 19 people were saying entire walls were disappearing, and there was even worse texture bugs that affect the scenery, which for me is a lot more game breaking than one character's face. Even though this is a cutscene that is it is game immersion breaking to see his face flickering like that. It only happens in that one specific spot and not in multiple areas, and everyone else's character faces are fine. So if you see here, it's this scene, there's no flickering. It's perfectly fine. So it must be to do with motion capture or the way that they've developed the game. Something is just wrong in this scene. Like it's the close up, maybe the facial animations, something just bugs it out. And every time I switch drivers, I reset the shader cache here in the drivers, and I restarted the game shader installation. So it was nothing to do with that. They were clean every time. I just wanted to make people aware of that for anyone that watches this and had the same issue. You could share if you also encountered it, or if you didn't have the issue and you're running a certain driver, or if, like, for example, you were running 19.4.2 or something like that, and you remember playing through the campaign and having zero issues, then let me know, because I might be tempted to go back and test these missions just to see if I can certify that on my RX 5700 that driver is a good one for playing the campaign, because at least future people that buy the campaign that want to play it through will know which driver version is good to use until AMD gets on top of this. So I am gonna submit bug reports and give AMD the details, so hopefully they can fix it. But for now, I'm just sharing this with you guys so that you know it's normal. Like it's not a overheating or anything like that, because it wouldn't be happening on just one character's face or a specific character's face. And I actually went back between drivers a couple of times before just conceding that it's an issue with 20.11.2 and 20.11.3. The exact same bug happens, and yeah, the other characters are fine. It's just if you go further back, you'll just make it worse, and it switches from Butcher to Garrick and Price. So Butcher was fine on 20.4.2 if you really care about this specific scene, or if you wanted to edit a scene, and like you could run 20.4.2 to get this cutscene, clean recording of this cutscene, and then you could go back to 20.11 to fix the other characters and re-record and edit it if you were doing that kind of thing. But other than that, I'll also go over one more issue I had with installing these drivers that I was not aware of. Is they added a new feature when you go to install 20.11.3 that next to factory reset, which is supposed to wipe the driver the previous driver installations, or basically uninstalled them. And next to that, they've added save user settings, and the tooltip for that says user settings will be saved and reapplied after the new driver is installed. So I thought, oh man, I don't have to, I can factory reset without worrying about losing my settings. So silly me, I thought it would work and ticked them both, and it factory reset. It uninstalled all the previous drivers, and then it rebooted my computer, and it's stuck on the desktop with no drivers installed. Like it got stuck there. It didn't reinstall it didn't install these new drivers after removing the old ones. It just I sat there and waited and like made sure nothing was running, and it was just there on, and it was on a really, when you uninstall your drivers, your computer goes low resolution. It was just stuck on low resolution. So I manually reinitiated the installation, which it didn't have to uninstall anything. It just installed 20.11.3, and I went to see what had happened. Like, did it really reset my entire, all my user settings? And it was weird. Some settings were still there and some weren't. So, for example, when I went into here, my folder was still there. All my recording settings were still fine. But under, where is it? And these were still turned off, like chill lag. I had all them turned off. None of this was touched. So it's like there was a file that had some of my settings that was retained, maybe from having that option checked, but that option it does not work the way you expect it to work. And under, where is it? I'll try to find it. There was under hotkeys, sorry. These hotkeys were re-enabled, the chill, anti-lag, and boost. So it was really weird. I had them all deleted, and then they reappeared again. I had to delete them again, and my toggle recording hotkey had been reset, so I had to manually put it back to what I used. So yeah, but everything else was fine. It was just really weird, this bug, and I'm just warning anyone that looks at that feature and thinks, oh, I don't have to, I can do a factory reset now. Because that's the main reason I don't do factory resets, is because it resets all your user settings. So in previously, I never did that kind of thing. Now, there's a setting I discovered here that some of you probably already knew about, but I didn't realize it existed. And this is like, because of what happened, you can actually export all your user settings and save them separately. So don't trust the app to function properly or save your settings. Just create a safe place and save it. Like, see here, I've created 20.11.3 user settings, and I've saved, after fixing everything, I saved my settings. And another thing is, under performance tuning, there's actually, as you can see here, like I've re-entered it all. It wiped all my tuning profiles from doing that. So I didn't even realize factory reset did that. I don't know if it's always done that, but just so you know, because I've advised people to create profiles that you can reload after a driver installation. In previous videos, I've said, like, save your profiles for overclocking or undervolting, and you can just reload them after updating drivers. But doing the factory reset, at least with 20.11.3, wiped them all. So sometimes when there's a big driver update or certain driver updates, previous profiles can be incompatible. But I've never, because I don't do the factory reset normally, I haven't had a big issue where I've lost my tuning profiles, and I was only able to manually recover them because of older videos where I've actually seen in the video, because the way I save my profiles is like this. I put the details of the profile in the description, like in the name of it, so I could actually just look at an older video and go, oh, okay, that's what I was using, and these are literally the settings. It's just saved in an easy to activate profile. Oh wait, I'm not saving, I'm loading. So I manually redid them all, and then I copied them. I can't do it in here, but I copied them into the same backup folder where I've got the other driver settings. So this AMD folder in documents. So you can put it wherever you want. Just to make people aware, create a backup if you're going to do factory resets, or even if you don't do factory resets, just create a periodic backup where every few driver updates you've just got like this backup of your tuning profiles and your user settings. Just in case you have to roll back, or in case they get wiped somehow. It's a good idea to do it. And I should have actually checked that before advising people to save tuning profiles, because I hope no one saved a tuning profile and then did a factory reset on the driver installation and lost it all. It's pretty frustrating. But now we know, so maybe some of you learned the same thing and don't have to make the mistake I did. But other than that, the drivers have been running fine. I played through that actual mission So I played through this whole mission on the 20.11.3 drivers, and apart from that one glitched face, everything else was fine. Um, and ReLive was working fine, clearly. It was in 4K, but it still has to process from YouTube. It's up to 1080p. But as you can see, the game was performing fine. There was no crashing, nothing like that. So just sharing that, and hope that helps you. Here's the actual run from today, just in case, so you know I'm not putting in random numbers. And you can just compare here. But yeah, within margin of error, everything's fine. That's basically what I'm trying to get across. And if I do encounter any really game-breaking bugs, I'll definitely be reporting them and telling you to roll back your drivers if you play that game. But for now, they're stable. There's no problem with them. It's just if you just check this first. If you have any of these scenarios, then don't update as well. Because it might create them. Like it could. You might not have a certain bug, like you might not have the brightness flickering, and then updating might cause it because it's a known issue with 20.11. Or if you're on an older driver, then upgrading into the 20.11 versions might trigger this. Because I'm not sure how far back it goes. Because when they put a known issue, it's just what they've tested and replicated from a user report or from internal testing that they weren't aware about in a previous driver update, so it wasn't in the notes, but it could have been there like 10 driver updates back. So, it's hard to be positive how far back some of these issues go, but if you don't have the issue and you're worried about it and you use FreeSync, then at least like take a note of what driver you're on, that the issue is not there, so that if you update and encounter the issue, you can go back to your safe driver. So yeah, and a lot of this mainly applies to certain graphics cards, not necessarily RX 5700. Alright, well, thanks for watching, and hope that helps you guys and was informative, and I'll see you in the next driver update. Bye.